there's nothing wrong with that. If a man sees an attractive woman and they comment on that, that's going to happen. But I just think I've seen it happen quite a lot where the focus is more on like the woman's looks than the actual content that she is sharing.
Right, like where you're saying, you know, you're doing a show or you're doing an interview, whatever, and you dropping some gems, and jokes talking about how beautiful. Like, oh, look at you. You like, are you listening to what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, it's like, thank you, but did you hear anything else?
right,
That's
like
all I
I'm.
want to know. You know,
Girl, you've got it. Act like you know it. Girl, you've got it. And you might as well show it. Say, girl, you've got it. Act like you know it. Girl, you've got it. And you might as well show it. Girl, you've got it. Act like you know it. Girl, you've got it. And you might as well show it. Girl, you've got it. Act like you know it.
What's going on, sports fans? It is your boy, the sports reporter that I pay. Y'all know what time it is. Here we are in the month of March, Women's History Month, honoring, showing love, and shedding light on women in sports. And before I get to today's guest, y'all see the merch. Y'all see what time it is. We got with us none other than the owner and founder of Double Take Sports and Parks PR. Miss Carita Parks is in the building. What's up, Bob?
listen, you are swagged out. I'm loving it. And the beanie, I don't know anyone who actually has the beanie, so I'm loving what that looks like.
Listen, and I need another one. I need
Yes,
another one. Yeah, it's fly.
representing. That's what I'm talking about.
As a matter of fact, I'm going bowling tonight. I'm rocking it. I was gonna wear it just for the video, but I'm rocking it. I'm keeping it on.
That's the kind of swag you can rock. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. As a matter of fact, after the video, whenever this get put out, make sure you drop the link for the merch in there so y'all can go out and support us. So y'all can get swagged out like your boy. You know what I'm saying? Be out here in the Double Take Sports.
Yes.
So listen, I started to run down the long list of things you do, the teams you cover, but it's better coming from you, directly from the mouth. So talk to the people. It's for the people who watching this who don't know who Carita Parks is. Tell them a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, Carita Parks' hands is in a lot of different things, as you alluded to. But I'll start with Double Take Sports since obviously you're rocking the merchandise of Double Take Sports. We're an online sports media company covering the NFL, NBA, WNBA. I used to work in golf, so we cover golf too. But really, the DC sports market and some of the national sports as well. But also, I have a background in PR, so you can catch a lot of my PR takes on sports on Double Take Sports as well. In addition to Double Take Sports, I have a company, Parks PR. That's my PR consulting firm where I work directly with clients, providing them with services like sports marketing, media relations, and overall general consulting. So that's the gist of what I do. Hopefully, I didn't leave anything out. Oh,
Yes, you
I should
did.
also mention that I'm a seasoned credential reporter for the Washington Wizards, Washington Mystics, and also the Washington Commanders.
See, I'm glad I didn't say it when you came in. Yes, you're doing a lot of things out here. So again, I know in fact, let's do this because you have to give people their flowers where they're here. What a lot of people don't know, and I am not afraid to say it on camera, you, Carita Parks, were the inspiration for this whole series. This whole series.
Yeah.
I met this this brilliant young lady here out at Super Bowl. Well, hurts Mahomes, right? And I saw her out there just doing her thing, putting it down. And we got to talking about a lot of different things. Through some mutual acquaintances of ours, we all went out to eat, and her and I got to having this what started off as a kind of fun conversation turned into this really serious conversation about different things in sports. And I was like, I need to get this on camera. And her and I did an interview. We did an interview at the Super Bowl. I didn't like the footage, so it hasn't been dropped. And I said, I need to do this with more people. More people need to tell their story. More voices need to be heard. So again, ma'am, thank you very much for sharing yourself And again, you are that like breaking barriers, women in sports is all it started with Carita Parks. So again, tell me a little bit about your story. Like how take sports, Parks PR, where did it all start? How does Carita Parks wind up covering sports?
First of all, let me just thank you for what you just said. I mean, like you said, we were just having a friendly conversation, and never did I think that it would inspire you to create this type of platform, which I think is great. So kudos for you to actually coming up with that idea. But I am very, very pleased to be a part of what you have created here. So just want to make sure I started off with that. But as far as my journey is concerned, so as I mentioned, my background is in PR. I'll tell you a little bit, like go deeper into the story. When I was younger, I actually wanted to pursue journalism. But as I got older, I wanted a little bit more variety. And so with that, I decided to get my degree in public relations. So I pursued PR. My first job out of college was with the World Golf Foundation, First Tee, started in golf because my love was always sports. So I knew I wanted to do that. Somewhere along the line, I got diverted, but it was all God's plan. But I got diverted and I started working for like an agency. But that agency sparked my like entrepreneur spirit, I guess. I didn't know it was there because it was very entrepreneurial type business. And so I did some of that for a while. And then I decided, hey, you know what? I want to start my own PR consulting company so that I can work on projects that I am interested in. And I can pursue more of this sports world because it wasn't necessarily happening professionally. So started Parks PR. One of my first clients actually was the Bottom Line Sports Show, which was executive produced by Penny Hardaway. Worked with other clients, did some work with Super Bowl, NFL Draft. Donovan Darius, who used to play for the Jacksonville Jaguars, worked with his foundation. And then I came across another like woman-owned independent sports platform, and I was doing PR for her. And I had an opportunity to go to Super Bowl, which ironically was in Phoenix back in 2015. And it really sparked my journalism side again because she had a group of reporters and I was hanging out with them and seeing what they were doing. I was like, I want to get back into my desire to do journalism. So I asked her if I could do some writing for her. She was familiar with what my work ethic is and how I work and how I write just from the PR side, because there's a lot of parallels. And my sports journalism career took off from there. Honestly, my first assignment was the NFL Draft in Chicago, which is crazy. So I did NFL Draft a couple years, Super Bowl a couple more years. And then I decided, hey, I want to focus local and do some of the local teams. And so I started covering the DC sports scene, got in with the Wizards, got in with the Mystics. And eventually I transitioned my coverage because I was doing it for some other companies. Once I started Double Take Sports during the pandemic, I decided to transition my coverage to Double Take Sports. And luckily those organizations allowed me to do that. And here I am today, still kicking and rocking and rolling.
So how many years have you been covering the Wizards?
The Wizards has been, so I think it was 2019, so 24 years, yeah.
Okay. And the Super Bowl we met at, the most recent one, was Super Bowl number what for you?
Oh, goodness.
Was it 6?
I think it was number 6.
Jesus Christ. And it was my first one, man. Jesus, it was a phenomenal experience to say the least. So you've done a lot, right? In this sports world. What would you say is the one thing that I guess kind of sticks out to you? It's like that feather in your cap, maybe the moment that made you feel like I really belong here. I guess you can say the high of the highs for you.
The high of the highs. I don't know if there is one moment, but for me, I think having the opportunities when I do cover, it's kind of weird because I cover teams locally, every day essentially. But when you go to Super Bowl and cover those type of events, it just brings like a different level of credibility for whatever reason. And for me, when I talk to those athletes, and I can see that they're really engaged with my questions. And when I'm asking them good, thoughtful questions, I know I belong there because I can tell that I have a different approach and that they appreciate it. And then, of course, when it's on social media and my followers are like, good question. We love that question. You know, look at how the athletes like engage with you. That makes me feel really good and shows that I'm bringing something different to the table. Also, you know, covering with the Wizards, I've had an opportunity to just cover a lot of different players because the team has turned over quite a bit. So I covered John Wall in the John Wall era and had some really great moments with him. Russell Westbrook when he was on the team, Isaiah Thomas was on the team. So I've had an opportunity to cover a good majority of NBA players. And so I just think that as my career grows and the more stories and connections that I make with athletes, I just continue to feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Okay, so we talking high of highs. I won't ask you what was the low of lows, right? Like that's not a thing where it's like you have to dive into that. But in those moments, right? Because we all have them where you're like, is this for me? Like, right? Like at the level where it's like, you know, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? What keeps you going in those moments?
Faith. And that sounds like a very like cliche answer, but it's true because there are moments where, so for example, after the pandemic, some of the teams or some of the work that I was doing, I should say, not even teams, in some ways, the pandemic gave you more access because you had Zoom and everything, right? But at the same time, it took away some access in some areas. So, really trying to build back and get back in those doors, it was a little bit of hard work. And there were moments where it's just like, man, am I ever going to be able to get back to like doing some of the things that I was doing? And those things were really important to me. And every time I got to like that moment where I just really felt defeated, I promise you, like the next day or like a week later, I would get a breakthrough. And when I would get those breakthroughs, it just showed me and reminded me that if I stay faithful, like things will happen. It's not on my timing, but if I'm just patient and keep pushing through the process and not give up, that it will happen.
Okay. So we talking women in sports, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I asked you this question before. Who would you say have been, I guess, some of your biggest inspirations, like the people that you look to and say, okay, maybe they made you believe that you could thrive in this space, or just somebody that you admire in this space?
I'd say admire only because I came into the space kind of untraditionally. So I wasn't necessarily, gosh, this is going to sound so, this is going to sound so conceited, but I just never really felt like I wanted to be like a particular journalist, so to speak.
There's nothing wrong with that at all. There's nothing wrong with that.
Everybody's like, oh, my inspiration is this person and that person. Now, there are journalists I absolutely respect. I love Jamel Hill's approach to journalism. Pam Oliver. I just like how she's been long standing through all the changes in journalism. She's still there, so I appreciate her approach to journalism as well. I like Taylor Rooks in the sense that when she has interviews, those athletes seem super comfortable with her. Like they'll it's almost like they're chilling, talking to a friend. So I like that. So there's people I definitely respect, but there was never anyone that I could pinpoint that I was actually following. Like I could be like her or anything like that. And that, like I said, that just might be because I came into the industry in a different way.
Okay, so let's bring it in closer then. Since you've been in the industry and you've been in this space, has there been anybody that you would say has been very integral in your growth, right? Somebody that I wouldn't necessarily say held your hand, but just somebody who's been there kind of every step of the way, or maybe in the beginning phases where you were trying to find your way?
I would say not anyone that necessarily held my hand because I'm such a go-getter that and it just was comfortable. It was comfortable for me. But the organizations that gave me opportunities, such as Pro Player Insiders, that was the first one I started with. Um, Sports Journey, I did the Wizards for them for a while. 3 Point Conversion, who I do the Commanders with. All of these people help open doors for me. And so I appreciate them believing in me and seeing something in me in those partnerships, because without them taking that chance on me, some of the spaces I'm in, I wouldn't necessarily be in. Or I would say it would have taken a lot longer, perhaps.
I'm okay. Listen, I don't buy into that's conceited. There's nothing wrong with believing in yourself and saying, about me. I believe in
I
me.
know, like, you really making me think over here. I'm like, man,
but listen, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, a lot of people say yes. Like, even me, like, I think Stuart Scott is dope, but he didn't make me want to do sports. Like, I
right,
just love sports, right? Like, if you
exactly.
5 best reporters of all time, Carita.
That's what I want.
The-
That's what I want. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I'm not mad at that. So, again, a conversation that now we've had twice. We've had it on camera once, and we had it off camera once. But again, the meat and potatoes of this series, right? The nitty gritty. Speak to the dynamics, and be as unfiltered and raw as you want to be. The different dynamics and the hurdles that you all as women in this space face that maybe don't get talked about enough.
yeah, I think being a woman in this space has its own particular challenges. And I think when we first had this conversation, one of the things I mentioned is there's this automatic assumption, and I felt myself hitting the table. So let me stop that.
Hey, listen, you fine now. You good now.
So there's this automatic assumption that women, we don't know what we're talking about when it comes to sports, or that like we should stick to something else, and that we can't speak intelligently about sports. But the funny thing is, if this is your craft and if you study your craft, you can speak intelligently about anything you want to. So for there to be this assumption that just because you're a woman, you don't know what you're talking about is absolutely absurd. And also, a lot of women, not all women, but a lot of women in this space have played sports of some sort, right? So there is a familiarity there. You don't have to play sports, but I think that just a lot of the female reporters I know, they have in some capacity, or they just love sports and they know their craft. So I don't really like that assumption, and I think that can be tough. But also, as a Black woman, particularly, I do want to speak on that. I sometimes feel like no matter how well I have done in this space and I have excelled in this space, sometimes I have to constantly continue to prove myself, which my counterparts don't necessarily have to. And then also, not only am I a Black woman, I'm a Black woman with a smaller platform. So you put those two things together, it just seems like there's always this constant need to prove myself in spaces that I've been in for a while. You know what I mean? At this point, I've been doing sports since 2015. I have a resume of things that I have done. I have proof that I am a professional in this space, but sometimes it just feels like there's always the extra mile you have to go.
So how do we get past? No. Before I get to that, let's backtrack, because there's some other things you touched on when we talked in person and off camera. Speak to the part of it where what you look like matters.
Well, I think it matters to people with an outside perspective. I don't think it should matter.
Well, that's what I mean. Make sure I clarify that.
Okay.
Because we're talking about hurdles you face, so we're not talking about whether it's the right thing, but it's a reality, right? That you face, that being a woman in this space, what you look like changes things for you.
Well, I think because going back to that conversation,
Mhm.
what I remember that we were discussing is that just as a woman, especially if you're an attractive woman in sports, you can post some banging content and and some of the men will be more focused on your looks than the content that you are actually putting out there. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that. If a man sees an attractive woman and they comment on that, that's going to happen. But I just think I've seen it happen quite a lot where the focus is more on like the woman's looks than the actual content that she is sharing.
Right, like where you're saying, you know, you're doing a show or you're doing an interview, whatever, and you dropping some gems, and jokes are talking about how beautiful. Like, oh, look at you. You like, are you listening to what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, it's like, thank you, but did you hear anything else?
right,
That's
like
all I want to know, you know? So, and I don't want to make it sound like compliments are bad. They're not. But when a man posts something from a sports perspective, you don't
nobody
really
comments and tells me how handsome I am ever.
what, right. That's what I'm saying. You don't see the women like, oh, good, he's so handsome. Look at no, you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it's a difference.
that's because we're men are a very interesting species. Let's just say that we're very interesting. So with again with the struggles and the hurdles that women face, I don't want to say where are we at. I would say how do we get past it? Like,
Well, women face hurdles in almost every industry. And
mhm,
it's been happening for a long time at this point. But I do think there's progress, right? There's been a ton of progress. And unfortunately, when you're dealing with barriers that are more systematic, it's still going to take time and it's almost like an ongoing process. So I just think that if we continue to see progress, women getting more opportunities, women being treated more fairly in those spaces, then we'll continue to see changes being made. But it's going to take time because you see women facing these issues and these barriers in almost all industries. I don't know if I could think of one industry where a woman hasn't had to uh, deal with barriers or feeling like they have to overprove themselves compared to their counterparts. So I'm not trying to say that it'll never change because it's changed. It's definitely changed. You see more women in this space. You see more Black women in this space. And I just think the key is for us as women to continue believing in ourselves and continuing to know that we belong in those spaces and continuing to show up essentially, and eventually we'll continue to see changes.
you know, when you think about, and I titled it this for a reason, breaking barriers. Oftentimes, when you're the people that are breaking barriers, the sacrifices you make or the hurdles and the stuff that you endure, you may not see the change, right? But
Right.
what you're doing, the work you're putting in affects change for possibly the next generation, right? So without
Yeah.
aging you, and I think I asked you something like this in the last interview, what is Carita Parks' message to that 15, 17, 19-year-old girl who wants to do this and feels like, well, that's not a space for me. I can't thrive in that space. What's your message to her?
It's a little similar to what I was just saying, but first of all, don't let anyone tell you that you can't thrive in any particular space because you can. So, my advice is to pursue your dreams relentlessly. Don't give up, but also be open to different opportunities because, like I said, my journey started in PR and I was content with that. But I found my way back to journalism. And like I said, it was a little untraditional, but here I am, a full fledged sports journalist at this point. So pursue your dreams relentlessly. Don't be afraid to ask for what you want. Because if I was at that Super Bowl in Phoenix and never said to the woman that owned the company that I wanted to write for her, then I may not be where I am today because I didn't have the heart to ask. All someone can say is no, and to be honest, that's not a big problem because people can either say yes or no, and if they say no, you find a different way. keep working your way towards your goals. Network, make sure you meet people. It's so corny, but it's true at this point in my life. It is so true when they say it's not always what you know, but
Who you know.
And
Absolutely.
that is so true. And it's so important to build relationships and get to know people. I'm in PR, I do journalism, but networking is not a fun thing for me. And networking is not a fun thing for a lot of people. Some people thrive in it, some people don't. If you're one of those people that don't, I'm telling you, you just have to get out of your comfort zone. If you really want it, you just have to get out of your comfort zone. So overall, what I'm saying is don't give up. Find different ways to do what you want to do. Me personally, I could try to get a job in mainstream media, but I don't want to. I want to do things my way. And so I started my platform. It's the easier way would probably be to try to get with a mainstream outlet. That'd probably be easier. But that's not what I wanted for myself. I wanted to do things my way, and I found a way to still be in this industry through partnerships with other companies, and then eventually starting my own company. So you just got to keep chopping wood, essentially.
I like it, especially when you said don't be afraid to ask, right? I always tell people, if you ask and somebody tells you no, you don't find yourself in any worse position than before you ask.
Absolutely. That's a great way. That's a great way to say it. Exactly.
You're no worse off than before you ask. So, again, we met at the Super Bowl. Many people don't know you just covered the combine, right?
Yes.
What's next?
What's next? So the Wizards, they are wrapping up. Their season wraps up in April.
The Wizard season ended 2 months ago. But carry on.
I'm not even gonna go there. I was about to I was like, if they don't make the play-in. Yeah, the Wizards are definitely seeing their fair share of struggles. And this is the time where they need to be thriving and going up the upward trajectory. And right now they are on a losing streak. So, but nonetheless, I will be covering the Wizards throughout April. The Mystics season starts in May. I have plans to try to get out to the NBA Summer League this summer, and hopefully I can marry that with the WNBA All-Star Game. And then we'll see. I'm not sure if I'm going to the NFL draft this year or not. That's still up in the air, but that's a possibility. So still plenty on my plate.
Okay. Last but not least, I'm going to solo shot you here and let the people know where they can find you, where they can see your content, where they can catch them PR takes, where they can see this Wizards and Mystics content, all that Carita Parks is doing. Where can the people find you?
You can find all of my sports content on dbltakesports.com. That's where you can read my articles, see the videos. I'm also on YouTube at dbltakesports and Twitter at the same handle as well. You can also follow me on Twitter individually at Carita C. Parks, and I drop a lot of my content there. At Parks PR on Instagram is where you can find a lot of my PR work, and I do my PR takes and I post them there, and also on my personal social media account, which I alluded to earlier. So that is where you can find majority of my content. Oh, and if you want merch, make sure you go to the website. I'll repeat it, dbltakesports.com. Click the link for the shop, and you can be merched up like my guy Ray.
Listen, they're not gonna make it look as good as I do, but yeah, you know what I'm saying?
You are bringing the swag.
I am telling you. So, listen, thank you so much again, not only for being a part, but for you jump-started this thing, and I appreciate it sincerely. So, thank you so much for sharing with us, to the fans, to the viewers. It's been Carita Parks. It's been your boy Ray, the sports reporter without pay. Be on the lookout for the next episode of Breaking Barriers, Women in Sports, and we'll catch y'all next time.
Girl, you've got it. Act like you know it. Girl, you've got it. And you might as well show it. Say, girl, you've got it. Act like you know it.